Hi guys, thanks for joining us again. Today we're talking to Lorin Nicholson, a therapist from Brisbane, a man with a very interesting history, very interesting background, and I know you're going to enjoy this. So thank you again for watching. Enjoy. Lorin, thank you very much for agreeing to sit down and have a quick chat with me today.
Yeah, you're more welcome.
Mate, you're a very interesting person from what I read. You're a musician, you're an author, you're a motivational speaker, you're a crazy cyclist from what I see, as well as a very successful businessman, as well as a health professional.
It's certainly been an interesting life, Laurie, that's for sure. I started my career in the health industry back, I guess, in the day that some of the older therapists might be aware of, where massage was still considered to be a little bit shady, a little bit seedy. And coming through that period out of the 80s and into the 90s when I did my training and as a remedial massage therapist, and then of course I did further studies from there as well. But you know, it was an interesting time, and it's been interesting to see how the industry has changed over the past 30 years since that has happened. But also in the meantime, some other opportunities have come up for me as well. I've got other interests and passions, and hence the reason why I've been called upon to be a motivational speaker and to do a lot of that sort of work. And look, it's just life's never dull, that's for sure. It's always very busy and engaging.
So can I ask you what made you decide to get into the soft tissue field in the first place?
Yeah, for those who may or may not be aware, I'm actually legally blind. I was born with only about 10% sight, and so there's always the big question for all of us, what are you going to do for a career? And this wasn't necessarily just an obvious choice at all. It wasn't that at all. I had a number of interests, and I did okay at school, but I knew there was certainly going to be some challenges in certain career pathways. And I did a vocational assessment at one point, and they said, you should be either a psychologist or a sports therapist. And they said, hey, why don't you join a football team and become their motivational speaker and therapist? And I thought, I enjoyed being around people. I enjoyed science, and particularly human science and anatomy and so forth. And of course, being blind, I had to really capitalise on the strengths that I had. And of course, in my case, it'd be my sense of touch as well. And so it just seemed like a natural choice to do that, capitalising on the interests and strengths, I guess, that I had. That's how it all started.
How old were you when you actually started studying?
I think I made the decision, and I wasn't sure whether I was going to do physio or chiro or osteopathic or massage or psychology even at that point. I wasn't quite sure exactly which path I was going to go down until after I'd finished school. But I just turned 21 when I finally started study, and it was down in Sydney. I travelled to Sydney at the time and lived there and with some friends, and studied there at Nature Care College, which has sort of evolved a lot since then. It was over behind the Royal North Shore Hospital at the time, and I was doing a diploma of remedial therapy, which was a 2-year course rather than the usual 1-year remedial massage diploma. And so I did a number of additional subjects and semesters and courses with deep tissue muscle therapy. I did a full year of nutrition. I did deep tissue muscle therapy and other sports therapy as well. So it was quite a good course actually, and luckily from there then I went back to my hometown, which was in Tamworth in New South Wales, and my parents were still living there, and I thought, maybe I'll go up here and I'll try and get a little bit of work experience with somebody while I'm there. And as it turned out, my uncle was a patient to the local osteopath who just started up a year or so before, and he said, "Oh, I'll have a word with him for you." And so he had a word with him. He rang me up a few days later. He said, "Look, he's actually not looking for work experience. He wants to put somebody on. Why don't you go down and see him?" And so the rest was history, as it were, and went and saw him, and he offered me a job. So my career was officially launched from that point.
It always comes back to not what you know, but who you know sometimes, isn't it?
Well, it's exactly right, you know. And, you know, it was interesting, though. It was a very unique experience and opportunity, as I mentioned before. You know, I mean, massage was still not recognised. There was no health fund cover, nothing like that. That was only just, they didn't come in until probably about 1998 when health funds started to finally recognise massage therapists. And it's interesting the backflip that's happening in recent times, because what they were realising back then was that when people pursued natural therapies, that they found that they were getting far less hospital and medical claims, which of course is oftentimes a lot more expensive when they have to go and have an operation or have other things done. And so that was the thinking back then. But as I was saying, when I started, there was none of that available. So, you know, how does the massage therapist kind of make their way in a professional clinical environment when you're competing against physios and chiros and osteopaths, which were, you know, at least covered by health funds and things like that? And I guess for me, I felt, well, you know what, I'm going to have to treat my clinical business seriously. I was going to have to really be as professional as I can be with what I'm doing, so that people do come to me as a matter of choice, as an alternative perhaps to some of the other modalities that were available at the time. So it was definitely an interesting time.
Yes, I mean, you would have been at Major Care around the same time as I was. I graduated back in '89. At Major Care, I was travelling down from the Central Coast every week.
Yep.
So paths may have
same location.
Yep, same location.
Back there in Frederick Street. Yeah, yep. I didn't start until February of 1990. So you and I were tag teaming it by the sound of it.
Yeah. Do you feel as though your training was adequate when you came out to be let loose on clients? You know what was interesting? Yes, I do. That's the short answer, but I'll explain why. Because I think it's because I ended up doing those additional subjects, which also included some advanced anatomy, and believe it or not, even the 1 year of nutrition that was incorporated as part of that course. It was like a certificate in nutrition. Went a lot into kind of biochemistry and functions and systems of the body and how things interact with each other. And I think even that kind of deeper understanding of the body's systems and their interaction with each other really did stand me in good stead. But I think for me it was a combination of, firstly, some pretty good training, secondly, the fact that I was legally blind and my sense of touch was, you know, obviously pretty enhanced. But thirdly, I think the real key in all of this was the fact that I got to work side by side with an osteopath for like 6 years. And so you take the knowledge and the toolbox, which is what they give you when you leave college. But like, well, now you got your knowledge and your diploma and your toolbox. Now what the heck do you do with it? Yeah. Sort of thing. And so working alongside some real professionals in that, you know, in the industry was really amazing experience, because it really helps you to know how to use the tools, how and when to use them. And you had a greater understanding of the application and the conditions that people were coming with, and how things were, one thing would impact another thing, and that really was great. I mean, I was treating probably up
upwards. I know when things really started to ramp up for the business, we were treating probably about 110 people a week.
Wow.
It's a heck of a lot of massage. And in fact, I remember when I finished there, he actually employed 5 people to take my one position. And one of the guys came to me about 6 months later, said, "Lorin," he says, "I'm only working 25 hours a week." He says, "I don't know how in the heck you ever did it full time." I was doing like 45 hours a week. It was pretty insane. Maybe I was young and silly or something. I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe being young and fairly fit. I mean, I'm 6'3", and was a fairly fit and healthy sort of a guy. And so, I think too, good technique, and that's what I teach people when I run workshops now. It's modifying your technique so that you're minimizing the impact on your body, but maximizing the impact and benefit on the patient that you're working on. And so I guess I may have developed that from a very early part of my career.
I think too, when you're working with other health professionals, I was in slightly different circumstances. When I left, I was working by myself out of a gym, but I started to get referrals from a particular physio, and having conversations and coffees with him over different clients. It was not long after that I started working out of his practice, and for probably 12 years we worked side by side. And having that knowledge base, because he was also a very hands-on physio, having that knowledge base that I could tap into with those, as my knowledge and skill set increased, you're still going to get people who are, you're going to try and confuse you, not on purpose, but you know what I mean. And having that ability to knock on the door, or, okay, he's having a coffee now, let's grab him and see what he thinks about this particular knee issue or whatever it might be. So I found that was enhanced my treatments and my ability to work more efficiently, in particular for the clients that I was seeing.
Yeah. No, and I know exactly what you mean, and I think your whole mode of operation changes with that knowledge as you go. And by that, what I mean is, I think, and I don't know whether you've seen this, or those who are listening to the interview here may agree with this, but when we get taught, you get taught the skills and techniques, I think, to leave and enter the workforce being safe with your skills that you're using. But not only that, I think you learn this, and I remember myself, you'd learn this routine, and you'd say, right, well, here's 20 different techniques to use, and so you'd systematically go through these different techniques to practice them. But then when you go out into the real world and you're working on people, you can't just be using that same routine on everybody. And when someone says they've got a sore lower back, it's not just a case of saying, well, let's just spend an extra 5 minutes on your lower back. I mean, there are times where when you're working with some of these guys, as you pointed out, with the physio or the osteopath and chiropractor, where they're saying, no, we need to straighten up this sacral torsion, and so we need to focus on this. And so you have to forget about all of the other parts of the body and focus on, the area that really needs the attention. And, of course, that may lead to other compensatory things that are going on, whether it be with the feet or the legs or the knees and so forth. But you really did have to look a lot more specifically at what you were treating, rather than it being completely holistic. And so there's this balance between the holistic approach and of a segmented approach, and I guess not one of them's not right or wrong. It's really a combination of both of those things. But perhaps what we don't get so much of in our training is that real deep understanding of what's happening at the localized area. It tends to be a little bit more holistic in some respects.
One of the things that I often bang on about is structure and function. If the structure's okay but it's not functioning properly, or is the structure not okay but it is functioning okay? So, which do you go? Structure first or function? And that is such an
interesting.
Individual thing, because each person is going to present with similar pain patterns, but once you get into doing your assessments and your testing, you'll find a variety of things that are possibly causing the issues. So as you said, you know, sacral torsions, innominants all over the place. And I think that with the way the training has been going the last probably 10 years, 5 to 10 years, they're getting a lot more skills in that area. And when new grads come out, at least you can have the conversation with them. They may not have the practical experience, but at least they've got that I guess, a baseline.
Fundamental understanding.
Yeah, of where to go.
Yep.
So
it is good, interesting that, and I see that with, even coming back to my condition, I guess, with the eyesight. I mean, they have what they call functional eyesight. So in other words, you know, when if you were to put me in front of the test and say, right, Lorin, read that eye chart up there, you might only be able to read a couple of letters. But yet, how can that be? Because you're walking around okay, sort of thing. And it's amazing how, like you're saying, the structure or it may not be, or the condition may be quite extreme, but yet the way you function with that can be, you know, quite capable. And I think about that with people, say for instance, with a degenerative disc problems and so forth. There are plenty of people out there getting around with some pretty significant disc damage that can be living a very comfortable, functional life, providing they obviously treat it the right way and manage it, you know, properly, but they can still get around and live a pretty normal life with it. But,
absolutely.
Exactly, yeah.
Given that you have managed to ride a push bike from Perth to Sydney for some God knows what reason, Qantas on strike at the time, or what?
I'm still trying to work it out, actually.
Did you stop and have a game of golf on the way across the Nullarbor?
There is a golf course across the Nullarbor, that's for sure, yeah. We had trouble getting ourselves across, let alone dragging a bag of sticks with us as well. Plus, I couldn't see the ball. So.
Fair enough. Given some of your achievements, what would you consider to be your greatest achievement to date?
You know, it's an interesting question, and I often get asked it, and I always struggle every time to answer the question. You know, and at a risk of sounding a little bit philosophical with this, you know, look, I have achieved a lot of things. I've won awards for my music, best-selling author, you know, first, in fact, the only, you know, my brother and I were the only blind people who've ever ridden push bike across Australia.
There's a good reason for that. Sorry.
Yeah, there is a very good reason for it, but it's right. So, you know, I mean, but at the same time, I've never lived my life waking up thinking, all right, what amazing thing can I do to try and impress everybody? I don't think like that. I was lucky in that I had very supportive parents and a good, you know, a pretty good home life and supportive home life. So we were kind of thrown out of the nest really and said, right, start flapping your wings and fly, you know, and they didn't wrap us up in cotton wool, you know. They kind of, my brother, who's almost blind too, we had to get out there and live life. And we got hurt and we fell over and we had to work different ways out to achieve things. But I think it's just that there was just this sort of built-in kind of resilience, I guess, that we developed, and problem-solving skills and attributes that sort of, I guess, stood us in good stead for life itself, you know, for all of these different, you know, achievements, you know, whether it's running a business or riding across Australia or learning how to play a guitar or whatever it is. But I think I'll come back now to answering the question. I suppose as a kind of a philosophical type answer in a way. I mean, all of those things, I guess, have been great achievements, but ultimately I don't think any of it would mean anything really without the significant relationship I have with my wife and my kids and my family. I think ultimately that is the greatest achievement, you know, being married for 28 years, and I'm not saying anything about anyone else whose relationships have had strain and struggle. Everyone's relationship does, but it's those significant relationships, I guess, in my life that have really been a tremendous achievement, and that provides motivation to keep going and to achieve these things. And I know that I've got the support there behind me. And I guess ultimately all of us need that support, whether it's a family member or a colleague or a friend or an industry colleague. In our case, in the health industry, we all help each other. And sometimes too, it's not necessarily what you've achieved yourself. I often say this when I do a lot of motivational speaking work. You might think of what you've personally achieved, but I also now, as an older person with some more maturity and years under my belt and so forth, I look at what I've achieved and realise that I haven't been able to do it just by myself. And I look at my kids and my friends and my colleagues and realise that they're not able to do it themselves either. And so perhaps the greatest achievement is not what I've achieved, but maybe what I've helped others to achieve, which is perhaps why my family and other colleagues, that's why I do workshops for therapists, just like I suspect you do, Laurie, is not only just to pass on the knowledge, but there is a great sense of achievement, and sense of satisfaction and reward in watching other people succeed as a result of your mentoring and support. And so that's really, I think, my top motivation and my top achievement.
The thing that I really get out of workshops is every now and again you'll get an email or somebody will call you up or send you a message and they say, I've got it. I got what you were talking about. I didn't get it on the day, but 3 months later, it now makes sense. Thank you. And it's those light bulb moments that therapists get or other people get. And, I've had the same thing myself over the years where I've taken, 18 months to be able to fully understand and grasp the concept that I was struggling with. So, yeah, it's those watching other people grow and develop is always a bonus. And like you said, particularly with your kids and other colleagues. So what's next for Lorin Nicholson? What's the next goal?
Well, I've been asked that question a lot, and I've had to really stop and reflect on that, and particularly in light of recent events. Of course, here we are now in isolation. I travelled to New Zealand a couple of weeks ago to do a motivational talk and a little mini tour over there, and I got in there just in time before Prime Minister Ardern closed the borders or placed restrictions on people coming in. But no sooner did we land and Prime Minister Scott Morrison put the same restrictions on Australia, so I found myself in isolation when I came home and thinking, right, well, what to next? And of course now we have this restriction which is, I believe, a little bit more strictly enforced here in Queensland to not practice, and so we're kind of finding ourselves now unable to work in our clinic. And I think for me, people have been saying, Lorin, you need to write a book. And I've also had other therapists saying, Lorin, you need to write or put together a few more workshops, and we really want to attend those. And I just haven't had the time to do it. I'm busy working in my businesses, but not enough time working on my business or even on myself. I'm working on everybody else and not working on myself. So I think the next few months, and possibly upwards to 6 months, might be a great opportunity to really work on me and to write that book that I've been told to write by hundreds of people, and to put those workshops together and be ready to come out firing when we finally see the restrictions lifted in the coming months.
Yeah, I probably this is not the correct forum for it, but I would love to have a chat to you at some point and get your views on how all the various associations have been handling this situation. But that's for another time.
It is interesting, and without going down that path, it certainly has been one of the big challenges of our industry ever since day dot is the fact that it's not a regulated industry, and that in itself brings a lot of opportunity and options, but at the same time it has provided some challenges along the way. And yeah, definitely that's a completely new discussion, that one. But we make the most of the situation that's at hand.
This is what we're doing now. Yeah, absolutely. So given your vast interests, what do you do to switch off?
Firstly, I'll say this, that I feel very lucky in that everything that I do, I really, really love doing. Work for me is fun. It's enjoyable, and yeah, there are times where I need to slow down a little bit, because I think by nature I've become a very self-driven type person, and so I can find myself becoming maybe at times a little consumed with my work, because sometimes my wife doesn't see work as fun, whereas I do, and so I do need to sometimes switch off. And I think what I do to switch off is I like to sit down and talk to people, even just conversation like this. I like to connect with people, and whether that's family or friends or whatever, I like to just sit and relax and have the casual around the dining room table type conversation. The other thing I really enjoy is music. I mean, I've been able to luckily use my music as part of my motivational work, but being able to sit down and play the piano or play the guitar or listen to music even is just some real me time, I guess you'd say, and that it's been really great for me my whole life, even when I was going through some pretty tough times as a teenager right through to now, when you just had a busy day and you just want to sit down and relax for a little while. That's a great outlet. So, and probably just reading books, I enjoy that too.
Awesome. Well, mate, I want to thank you.
And riding bikes across Australia.
Yeah.
Plenty of downtime there.
Yeah, that's more crash and burn time after each day on that.
Yeah, it is crash and burn time, I can tell you. 4 weeks, 4,000 kilometres. It was quite an epic journey. In fact, if you don't mind me mentioning it, there's a very interesting, it's a short, I guess you could kind of say a self-made documentary film on YouTube called Blind Courage.
Okay.
Perth to Sydney documentary, Blind Courage. It only goes for like 18 minutes and it's G-rated, so the whole family can watch it. But it's just a little overview, I guess, of that ride across Australia, and it just gives people an idea of why we did it and what it was like. And you meet my brother and you'll meet my dad and a couple of my family on the video too. And but it's just something maybe a little inspirational to watch with the family while you're having some downtime.
Absolutely. Is there a link on that on your website?
It's not on my website, although I should probably put it on there, but it's on my YouTube channel, which is called Inspired by Lorin, Lorin. And that's probably the other thing I'm going to do now that I've got all this new found time I've got now, is probably put together some more videos myself and do all those little jobs that I never get around to. Put a few little inspirational videos up on my Inspired by Lorin channel.
I'll have to have a look at it. And if anyone watching wants to have a look at your website, it's lorin.com.au.
That's it.
Yep. Okay. Lorin, thank you very much for taking some time today to sit down and have a chat. I know we have conversed for the last couple of months now and again over Messenger. And I really appreciate your sitting down and being so candid with me today. So thank you very much, and we will see you on the other side of this.
We will, if not before. And if I could just say a huge thank you, Laura. I think what you're doing is great to really provide some positivity at this time, and I hope we all stay safe stay well, but most important of all, let's all stay positive. Let's be optimistic about it, about what we're going through at the moment, and the sun will start shining again. There's no question about that. So
Absolutely.
take care of each other.
Absolutely. All right, mate. Thank you very much. If you want to read more about Lorin and his journey, you can have a look at his website, Lorin, spelled Lorin, lorin.com.au. Okay, guys, until the next one, stay safe, stay well. Thank you for watching.